I guess that's the way I like it. That makes me rumble. Don't we rumble? Float like a butterfly and sting like a bee. Ah, rumble, young man, rumble. Hey, that's what we're gonna do. We're gonna rumble.
This week on FightStuff. A teacher breaks up a high school fight with technical shoving. They don't teach that in kindergarten. French-Canadian king George St. Pierre retires, leaving a maple-shaped hole in MMA and in our hearts. And the legend of the techno giant Man Choi.
Shit! Oh, shit! Oh, shit! He was just fucking his shit up! Oh, shit! God damn! Oh, shit!
That's the viral clip of the week!
I love that viral clip of the week for so many reasons.
Oh, shit. Yeah, so this is, I mean...
Hey, you know what? Why don't we introduce... Welcome
back
to the FightStuff podcast. Episode 2.
Man.
At least we're recording it as episode 2. We'll see if we actually keep it that way.
I think there's a good chance this will come out. Yeah, well, yeah. I mean, I feel like we're on a roll now.
Yeah, exactly.
We said we do one.
So now we're doing 2.
This viral clip of the week was also, I don't know how recent it was. I just saw it recently, so it could be, these things live. That one I found on Instagram, probably in I think Fight to Win Pro, the site for this like professional grappling league, posted it. They periodically put up just random sort of fight videos.
By the way, and that's one of my favorite things about MMA Instagram pages is their randomness where they're like, oh, dude, you got to see this fight clip.
Yeah.
They try to be professional as all hell, and then all of a sudden they're like, dude,
yeah, I feel it's a microcosm of like what we do too. We're like, yeah, well, we have all these thoughts about like it just fighting reflects our inner conflict and what it is to be alive, and wow, but really like also just look at this,
look at this guy,
look at these idiots,
look at these guys. They got a camera and they decided to fight.
Well, so this is also I think a nice one for the second episode because I feel like we're exploring genres, like classic genres of fight clips.
Sure,
and this is a good one. This one is a sort of a breaking up a fight clip, but also I think does a lot of things right. So basically what it is somebody's cutting in. It's definitely in a high school.
Yeah. Let's describe it for the people who don't have access to the video, who are just listening. But I'm sure you can find this on Instagram. Does it have an official title? This
one has no official because it's Instagram, so you don't like. They didn't really.
See, that's the part
anything.
that sucks compared to like the last one where it was like super race baiting and be like Asian kid beats that frat boy.
But this one, they don't. There's no title because it's just a thing. I mean, I could find the caption that they put on it, but I mean, what is the guy? I wonder what they said.
Yeah, what's their version of this?
This teacher did a great job by breaking up this fight with basic self pushes by body leverage efficiently.
Okay, that's a really terrible way of saying something that's actually really important.
Yeah.
So we're outside by the bus stop of like what looks like a high school. These kids look to be about high school age, right?
They're definitely high school age, and it's got to be like after school, like right after school.
3 o'clock. Everyone's getting ready to head to the buses. And it looks like, what is it? 2 kids are trying to throw down right now?
Are getting in something. They've got something between them. It's after school. It's time to fight. Blah, 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 whatever. And this huge... Well, he's not even huge. He's like a normal-sized guy. He's definitely outweighs these kids, but in the way that, like, a teacher probably in his 30s, like, I
mean, to me, he probably looks like in his 40s. He's probably about 180, 200 pounds. He's got a little bit of a gut on him.
Yeah.
Solid legs, solid base. So he's able to, like, push these kids down.
Former athlete, probably.
He looks like he definitely played high school football. He definitely has. If he was a linebacker, I'd be like, yeah, obviously.
For sure, still plays played high school football, still goes to the gym, but just, like, does the machines. You know what I mean?
Absolutely. He's on that Nautilus, like, cranking out the bench press.
Yeah, seated curl machine, preacher curls against the for sure. Just like that, that guy who's like always drinking out of a shaker cup.
Yeah.
Who wears a tank top, but the cutoff sleeve kind.
It's got What's amazing is we both went there. It's like, he definitely has to cut out the top or the sides, and he's definitely like he's strong. Definitely not in shape.
Well, this brings to, like, I always think like the idea of bouncers, like there's this idea of like the Patrick Swayze Roadhouse bouncer who's like, he's not big, he's just really good at fighting or something like that.
Yeah.
And the one thing that's true about the Roadhouse bouncer kind of thing, I think, is just the idea of it's mostly just being polite. It's mostly just being like, no, please, you gotta go over
I'm
here.
gonna ask you to leave
and
now.
being
I'm sorry.
firm but polite.
Yeah.
That's true. But I always thought I was like, dude, I don't care how good you are at fighting. As a bouncer, you don't want to be fighting people ever. You don't want to hurt people. You don't want to be like Patrick Swayze. I'm only 160 pounds, but I'll punch you in the throat. Like the idea is to get people out safely without violence, continuing to so being a big, huge fucking guy who's able to just like step in and be like, no, you could try to punch him, you can do whatever. He just kind of like hugs you and just kind of goes like,
listen,
we're gonna carry you outside.
Someone who's 160 pounds, 5 pounds heavier than I, asks you to leave versus a dude who, let's say, weighs 250 to 300 pounds.
Right.
Asks you to leave. Guess what? I'm listening to the guy who weighs 300 pounds because I just don't want to die.
Yeah, but also I feel like it's like the whole point is having the mass and strength to just treat you like a child and be like, all right, that's enough, and put you outside. Because like, we're not talking about somebody who's gonna like assassinate you or like is gonna go 5 rounds or in a cage. It's like for real self-defense kind of stuff. And more importantly, when you're in an administrative position, whether you're taking care of the drunk babies at a bar, or the drunk on hormones babies that are teenagers, that like if they decide to tussle, you want to be able to take care of the situation without anybody getting hurt. Especially if you're a teacher in a public school where you're like, I'm not going to get fired. I don't hurt kids.
No, absolutely. And this actually kind of ties into this clip. And I think we've talked about it before of Mark Black over at Santa Monica High School.
Yeah.
We had talked about it where he was a wrestling coach. Still to this day, I saw Coach Black recently, and he's still in ridiculous shape and still can blast a double leg takedown like nobody's business.
And he's like a middle-aged guy.
He's more than middle-aged. He's like, sorry, Coach Black, I think you're in your 60s, question mark?
But that will probably be a viral clip one of these days.
No,
just
absolutely. Just because it's so effective in showing you how, like, a public school teacher who knows what he's doing has a knife pulled on him in class and neutralizes it by a double leg takedown and holds him down. We'll distance ourselves from the politics that were associated with it, but how this ties into this clip is you see this guy
the politics associated with you're saying just the idea of a teacher fighting a kid. That was what people got upset about. They were like, kids shouldn't be. But I mean, whatever. Like, what are you gonna do? Like, just let these kids like swing it out like after school? Like, no. Like, you can't let. They could hurt each other.
No. In this clip specifically, this guy does such a good job at neutralizing the situation by literally just pushing them down to the ground.
Yeah, putting himself in between them. Like, when the other one continues to want to fight, he does. It's amazing. It's just like a solid base shove, and these kids go flying.
Yeah.
And I want to say too, like that. Intervening in a fight is a really bad idea.
It is a very dangerous proposition.
Yeah. People who do that, you're very noble and very stupid. And if you're in a position that you have to, then it will just remain in the realm of nobility and good job. Because, like, you don't know what you'll get caught with. When people are like, it's kind of like breaking up two dogs.
Yeah. First time I had my nose broken was I thought I was doing the right thing, getting in between two people that were fighting, got clocked across the nose.
Yeah.
Like,
I knew one guy I did kung fu with when I was like a teenager. He like told me this story once that like he was walking home. He didn't live in like a great area of Chicago, late at night through some park or something. And he said he saw this guy just like beating this woman. Like that, like he assumed they were boyfriend, girlfriend, and whatever in a fight. They had that kind of like domestic violence vibe to them. And he was like, oh, this is fuck this. He intervenes and like hits the guy, starts like, because he's beating this woman. And the woman just starts beating him. Like, don't touch him.
Don't touch my man.
Yeah.
Like,
and so he was like, whoa, fuck this. And he just like, got out of there. And it's just like, when you get between people, you don't know what you're coming in on. So for self-preservation, generally, just avoid all conflict. The thing that continues to be the theme of this show, get the fuck out of there. Just don't fight. But if you got to take care of people, I mean, amazing.
Yeah.
So whatever. Props to this teacher, I feel like, who I'm sure, unfortunately, some bad shit probably he probably got fired or reprimanded.
And that's the thing that happened. Again, I don't want to like spend too much time on this Coach Black thing, but he got suspended. He got suspended for defending himself. And like, I hope that doesn't happen to this, guy right here, because really he's doing the right thing.
Yeah, and you're defending like the kids Who, you know what I mean? Like,
and plus, this situation could have escalated. Like, what if their friends get involved and it turns into more of a melee situation?
Yeah.
But like, by stopping it right there, all of a sudden, shit is squashed.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's like, "Whoa, I am not messing around with this bus driver or teacher or whatever he is."
Yeah. Well, there you go. That's your viral clip of the week.
Be sure to check it out. It's endlessly entertaining, and there's plenty of swear words that I'm sure you'll definitely enjoy.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think. We'll probably leave this. I'm not going to bleep swear words. I'll bleep racial epithets. I will always bleep.
I think that is a fair thing to do at this stage.
At this stage, somewhere in the future, we
might change.
We're just going to let all this stuff.
Listen, we'll just let viral clips continue to play out in real time and see what happens.
All right. Let's get into current events this week in sports, this week in fighting. Nothing like super notable. And plus, like, since we're kind of dropping a bunch of these at once and recording a bunch early.
Yeah, full disclosure, we stack production sometimes.
Well, yeah,
and
for
especially
sure.
for this first block.
Yeah, we like the idea of, like, I don't know, anytime I've started podcasts in the past or other people I've known have, it's like, it's nice to just drop a bunch at once so you out there can decide if you like this or not. If
Right,
you like
absolutely. And if you don't like the first episode, stick around
Get
for
the
the
fuck
second
out of
episode.
here. I mean, stick around for the second one.
Right, exactly. And maybe there's more. Maybe we've got our shit dialed in after, all this time.
Yeah, that's how I interact with podcasts. Is I try one for an hour and then I'm like, I don't know. Let's try another hour.
You don't? I do. Like,
No,
if it comes highly recommended.
Sometimes, if it's recommended, which I'm sure we will come highly recommended. Everyone out there listening will tell everyone, I highly recommend
this
If you don't
MMA
like it,
podcast.
After the first hour, I suggest trying another hour.
Perhaps you should enjoy yet another hour with these two delightful men.
Yes, as they discuss the fine arts of pugilism.
That's right, about this podcast about violence and things that are important to violence enthusiasts.
On that note, let's talk about this week. So there's other news, but what's kind of nice is even since we recorded the first one just a couple days ago, stuff has happened, and the most important thing is Georges St-Pierre.
Georges St-Pierre has declared his retirement yet again.
That's very good.
I could get
And
back.
so we will do the entire episode.
Shall we do the whole thing?
Like we're from Montreal.
Montreal.
Where is he from? Is he from Montreal?
Yeah, he's French-Canadian.
Montreal. So Georges St-Pierre, I'm sure everyone listening will know who Georges St-Pierre is. Maybe not. I don't know. Who knows?
You know what?
Who our audience shall be?
His peak popularity was actually a couple years ago. So, like, some people might not know the magic and the glory of the arguably the greatest welterweight champ. He was welterweight, 170, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but he, I think he was one of the few champions. Maybe, yeah.
No, he was 170, and then in his most recent fight, he went up to 185
That's right.
and looked jacked.
Well, that's what I'm saying. That's
Like-
I mean, as a side note, he was fucking jacked, and afterwards had to get treated for ulcerative colitis, which I said was related to his bulk,
Oh yeah. He
like his
looked
bulking phase. Which
right.
he was definitely big as fuck. I mean, they're testing now, so I don't. He couldn't. I mean, I don't know. Do you think he was on steroids to do that shit?
At what point? Like
This-
during
the
his
bulk,
run?
this recent
Oh, the
bombast
bulk? No, I think he just allowed
Was it
himself to
clean?
eat and actually work out. Like,
Yeah, he's got that kind of like natural, just like.
yeah, no, I
Not
mean
so
he's jacked as all hell, but I mean that cut to 170 wasn't always easy. But then when like adding 15 pounds of like lean muscle mass and looking as jacked as he did,
Yeah, which
is
actually
tough.
puts
Like-
in perspective, like, because of very recently, Khabib, they were trying to angle for like maybe a Khabib fight, a Khabib Georges St-Pierre fight, which would have made a lot of money and a lot of people would want to seen it. But like that does put in perspective, like Khabib tweeted this thing at him like just this last week. Let's do it in November. After this fight, you can retire. I grow up on your fights and have nothing but respect for you. And I believe showed that to you, George, when you were in Moscow. Anyway, he goes on to be like, it would be an honor to share an octagon with you. Let's do it at 155. He goes, or I give away 5 pounds to you because you never done, I think he meant to say never done, 155. Well, it's your choice, 155 or 160, etc. And then I'll fight anywhere. Give me the location,
wow,
my friend.
he tweeted a lot of very specific information.
very
being
specific
like,
information.
if you want to do it on Tuesday, I will.
Yeah, he's like, if you want Tuesday, we can do it in Saudi Arabia, wherever you want.
I will meet
anywhere.
you in Abu
Yeah,
Dhabi.
he does say Montreal or NYC, but like, anyway, the point is,
Yes.
his last fucking fight against Bisping, that was his last fight, right?
Yeah.
Which is an amazing comeback fight. At 185, and you're like, even if he bulked up to that, and like when he's not in that bulk for that camp, he's like naturally like 175, 170, which I highly doubt. At 37, as an athletic person, like it's
So I was
easy to
told
keep
at
that weight on,
170 when he was not training, he was around like 210 and then cuts to 170.
no fucking way.
Right. So he's he's big, but if
That's a horrible cut.
yeah. I mean,
Jesus.
obviously, like some of this is just like second, third hand, but
Yeah.
like that was sort of the rumor. Is like these are big boys, like, and what is he like 5'10", 5'9", something like that?
I don't think he's that big, but he's definitely jacked and so athletic. But still, like the idea that like
So my point was like
down
if
to
he's
160.
cutting to 185, that means he's like what? Probably was around like 230.
no, that's insane. Nobody would cut 50 pounds. No fucking way. No fucking way. Definitely not. I mean, I could see him being like around 205, something like that.
Yeah, and then cutting to 185. I mean, like probably what 12
But he
pounds
was saying
of
he had
water
to
weight.
bulk for that fight. So
Yeah, that's what I'm wondering. Or maybe he kept the weight on longer through camp.
my guess is he's naturally around 180. If he got softer, he'd be like up 185, 190, and like probably naturally, actually, maybe he's like 175 or something like that. 175, 180. Just like some people you have to like work to put that weight on.
Sure, but I mean, like if you look at him, like he cut weight for those fights, right? And probably by the time he walked into the octagon, he was probably around 185 pounds. Like,
Yeah, but I mean that thing too of having that like complication from the bulking and then it's just bad for your body. So like the idea,
I mean, the whole
almost
idea
like
of weight cutting is
laughable.
like
it's
so
really bad.
terrible.
It's really like you just dehydrate. There's a lot of people like a lot of fighters and stuff are like not doing it as much anymore. It's kind of like an anti. Just cause I mean you come in, you're healthy. It's just not good to put your body through that. I mean it's not good to put your body through head traumas either.
trading camp or head trauma or.
But anyway, it does put in perspective Khabib being like cut down to 160 so he can fight again. It's like I'm retiring. I'm just gonna retire.
I'm good.
Another reaction, Tyron Woodley also is another notable reaction just because
Tyron Woodley.
it's not Tyrone.
No, that's racist.
That's not racist. That's how everyone says it.
Tyron.
Tyron?
All
right,
Read his
Tyron
name.
Woodley.
There's no E on the end, man.
Yeah, I know, but I mean, like, it looks very French or something.
Good.
Oh, I don't know. Okay, well, Tyron Woodley, he was like, I was planning to call you out after the next fight. Apparently, he had like a verbal green light from Dana to do it. But it's not happening. But he was really respectful. He was like, I hope we can meet in the gym. Like, it would be an honor. He said, you've had the best run of any fighter to grace the cage canvas, which I think is pretty fair.
I would say that's
He
pretty
retires
true.
26-2, 37. Fought some like serious legends of the sport. He beat BJ Penn 2 times. He beat Matt Hughes, I think 2 times also. Just a bunch of like legendary fights. Nick Diaz, he beat Jake Shields, Carlos Condit,
Literally
Koscheck.
the greatest welterweights of all time. Like you look at him, and these are none of them are chumps. Like none of them are.
And he fought him in their prime. I mean, he fought Hughes and BJ Penn like in their prime.
Now, I mean, obviously, towards the tail end of his career, his fights could be described as boring.
You think so?
Absolutely. His like wrestle fucking was like kind of like not the greatest, most exciting style because it was the smartest style.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I willingly threw down pay-per-view money every time he fought because I always wanted to see what he was going to do. And he was arguably the greatest athlete to do it at welterweight when that division was stacked. But if you zoom out a little bit and you sort of like remove a little bit of the mystique of GSP, you're just like, oh, he would jab, shoot a double leg, work position for 4.5 minutes. He was technically great at it, but like his whole game plan and Firas Zahabi's thing was not like, I'm going to knock you out.
Yeah, I guess I pride myself on being a full spectrum fan of things. The things I love, like food. I think if you can't like appreciate, if you can't honestly say, yeah, McDonald's tastes fucking good, Twinkies taste fucking good, as well as like high end organic shit, like whatever. If you can't admit that, then you don't really love that thing.
Sure.
And so the metaphor, the analogy for me with fighting is like, yes, I love just bleed, spinning shit, like maniacal, like crazy ass fights that everyone loves and screams for in UFC. But I pride myself as a jiu-jitsu guy, maybe, on really appreciating like a boring technical, quote unquote boring,
Sure.
Like because they're clean and they're disciplined and they've like got a game plan and they win.
Absolutely. And that's not to say that he doesn't, but one could certainly make that argument where you're just going to be like, All right, so I'm having a prediction. GSP is going to win in a 5-round unanimous decision yet again.
Sure.
Because you almost know that he is smarter, he's stronger, he's more technical, and he's willing to follow his game plan more than any of his opponents.
That being said, he did he tapped out Bisping, didn't he? Submitted him.
Yeah.
I think in trying.
Which no, I think it was rear naked choke, but what it was I don't know if you saw that fight, but he was gassing. Like if he didn't get that choke, all that bulk, he was going to gas out, dude, because he wasn't able to maintain that pace at 185, which is what's really interesting.
And that choke too. I just think it's cool. Like Matt Serra was a big upset fight earlier in his career at UFC 69, I believe, and Serra is a Henzo black belt. Trains like Henzo and Serra and John Danaher, like they're part of that crowd. Faraz Sahabi, who ended up being George St. Pierre's coach and is like a very brilliant MMA coach,
one of the greatest out there.
Yeah, and he's a black belt under Danaher, and George St. Pierre was like training with Danaher and Henzo's camp leading up to those fights. And I just think that speaks to sort of the intelligence and just like kind of coolness of someone who like you get beat by someone and then wind up going back to train with them and their people, being like, well, this guy beat me. What is, what do they got? Yeah.
Sure. I don't know if you remember that fight, but it was like one of the biggest upsets in UFC history just because like at that point he was so dominant and Matt Serra was so much of an underdog.
Yeah.
Because I mean, he had won tough. That's
right.
He was one tough 3, tough 4, something like that.
Yeah,
tough 2. But that was his prize, was to fight GSP for the title, and everyone was like, "This freaking meatball is gonna fight the greatest, most beautiful, most perfect man on the face of the planet."
Yeah,
and shocks the world by knocking him out.
Yeah, George St. Pierre's vibe was he's very Adonis. He's very like, oh, this guy's athletic and muscular and like
and hairless,
gleaming, so hairless, so Greek and hairless.
Yeah,
Serra himself is the subject of the star of a very good viral fight clip.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
It's a drunk guy in Vegas just doing the most jiu-jitsu-y, just big brothering this guy.
Oh yeah, it's so funny. Now, I mean,
you think it was staged, right?
I think
that's your thing.
Yeah. Because I don't know if you ever watched.
We talked about that.
Dana White, him, and like Dean Thomas have a show on the web that the UFC produces, and views are okay, but they're good, not great. And so it was like, oh, well, some people don't know how amazing Matt Serra is. Well, here's him being a good guy in Vegas, doing good guy things, breaking up fights.
Yeah.
I mean, it's also totally possible because, listen, I'm sure he knows like we do that we're just sort of just like, dude, don't get involved with fucking fights, even in a Vegas
especially
restaurant.
If you're a big star.
Exactly.
Whatever.
He has shit to lose.
Yeah.
And unless the guy was being so obnoxious and, then maybe he felt like, I'll just hold this guy down and big brother him. It's possible.
It's real to me, damn it.
Yeah.
Okay, so just concluding. I mean, it was just nice. His was very gracious. George St. Pierre's like exit speech and statement and stuff like that. One thing I think he said was kind of nice to read. It takes a lot of discipline to become a state champion. It also takes a lot of discipline to stop while still feeling that you're in the best physical and mental shape of your life. I believe that the best way to pass the test of time is to remain ahead of it, which is very smart. And I really fucking hope he does that.
I hope so too, especially after his encounter with head trauma and aliens and his losing time.
Yeah.
In one of the craziest. I think this is actually his clip. His interview on Joe Rogan was probably one of the first, I shouldn't say first, but one of the more important viral clips because people were like, "Yo, did you hear GSP on Rogan's podcast?"
Yeah, because Pat Miletich came on his podcast later and was like, I meant to talk to you about that. So, which is funny because I didn't really even know about that. That wasn't part of my knowledge of GSP.
Oh, yeah. That's why he retired initially. So he's retired, 2 or 3 times. So the first time he retired, when he announced, I can't remember which fight.
Officially, people were just like, he's taking time off.
He retired in the ring after one fight. He's like, I have to go away now. I think was it the Diaz fight where he's like, I have to go away now. And like everyone was like, did you just retire? And he's like, I have to heal my brain or something. Like,
wow.
Yeah. And even Rogan, like in the octagon was like, are you retiring? Like everyone was completely surprised by it.
Yeah.
But then this clip comes out where he's talking about how the head trauma has like really like affected him as
Well,
far
Joe
as him
Rogan
like
said that. Joe Rogan, that's his theory.
he did, but
Oh,
you know,
George said that too?
well, so George was talking about how he's like losing time. Essentially, where it's
Right.
like he's blacking out, doesn't remember when things were happening. He was talking about, you know, not alien abduction, but like alien encounters. And, you know, Rogan was in the clip, and you should definitely check it out. He is doing his best to try and get information out of him while at the same time being respectful of like being like, yo, do you really believe in aliens, or have you been punched in the head 800
Yeah.
times?
Which I think that was the number. At least back when they did that clip, that was like, it's like 800 times like in the octagon.
Right.
Not even counting,
Hard
training,
sparring,
life,
training, all that stuff. Life.
whatever his Kyokushin career was and
Oh,
stuff.
jeez.
Which is also dope. I just think it's cool that he came from like Kyokushin background guys are so cool to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like just, you know, Machida, Thompson, any guy who has like that karate background. There's something I just love about that still.
Well, I mean, like, for me, you know, I grew up with Tong Sudo, like, where it's
Yeah.
all like flashy kicks and all that
Yeah.
stuff that you're just like, oh, this is so impractical. And then you find someone who's like, oh
Yeah.
no, this hard style karate, like, actually has an
Who
application.
finds those spinning kicks and he doesn't do St. Pierre doesn't do that karate thing that Thompson and Machida do where they like kind of keep their hands down. Chuck Liddell in his prime even though Chuck Liddell was more of a punchy guy, like still it's like I just want to believe. I still want like Chuck Norris-y, Bruce Lee. Like I want karate stuff to be real.
Yeah.
And so the guys who can pull it off, it's even though I'm a grappler and I love that, it's because I could never do that stuff.
Yeah.
So it's like I need to go to the lower common denominator, higher percentage, you know, thing. But when you see people who can do it, it's just so like beautiful still.
Yeah,
You know?
no, it's great. Whenever I see and that like front side kick that people are using, like
That sliding one that's becoming a new.
the karate hottie,
Hey.
Michelle Watterson.
Yeah.
She uses that front like sliding like sidekick as a teep like so effectively, and you're just like, oh, like people are expecting just common old nasty Muay Thai front teeps as like a jab.
Yeah.
And you throw that and it catches people out of nowhere.
Yeah.
You know, really effectively.
Yeah. Conor McGregor would throw that weird little low to the knee sidekick too.
Oh, that oblique kick?
Yeah.
That hurts my knee just talking about
Yeah,
it.
which like to great effect against like Aldo and stuff. That fight that, you know, we knocked him out in like 30 seconds or something like that. And so it's just like cool. It's just like dope to see that because it's so technical. You need to be so good, so like strong and balanced and timed well for that stuff to work. That it's like it makes you like believe in like martial arts. Like the
Yeah,
beauty
like
of
if
it.
I log enough time and effort in the gym, I'll be able to throw this kick as effectively as these people.
People he thanked by name on the way out. He thanked Hoist Gracie, which he said like that when he first saw Hoist Gracie fight, he like almost like a vision was like, knew this is what I want to do.
This is what I'm going to do with my life.
He thanked I don't know this guy, kickboxer Jean-Yves Theroux.
I don't know him either.
Yeah, I guess, which, you know, fake fan. I'm a fake fucking fight fan for sure. And then, and I just like the best of this is just the most Canadian thing ever. And thank you to Wayne Gretzky. He's probably the best athlete, all sports combined. His records will probably never be broken. Not only is he an incredible athlete, for me, he's an incredible role model. And through my career, I always tried to mold myself like Wayne Gretzky.
Dude, if I ever retire from professional sports, I'm going to thank Wayne Gretzky. I promise you.
Well,
I mean, he's so great.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
That is definitely true.
You also don't take 100% of the shots you don't take to the head if you don't fight. I don't know.
No, that's 100% true as well.
Yeah. Anyway, whatever. Great thing. That's it. Oh, I'll do this again while we're on HUD trauma.
Yeah. Let's talk about hood
He goes,
trauma a little bit
the
more.
moment I'm most proud of in my career is when I got dropped in the fight game, St. Pierre said, when I got dropped with the head kick by Carlos Condit and I fall down and I was able to stand up. It sounds weird. People think it would be about a victory or a knockout. For me, it's when I got dropped by a head kick and I survived.
You know, get knocked down 7 times, get up 8 or whatever that
Rocky
metaphor
shit,
is.
that
Yeah,
Rocky
absolutely.
shit, which is horrible advice. And when you see Rocky, as played by Stallone, being pretty effectively has aged into a guy and a face, whatever he's doing with his, you know, chemicals and
His face.
surgeries and whatnot.
Yeah.
It very much has that like Mickey Rourke vibe of like, I've been hit in the head too many times, and he's screaming like, how many times you get hit and get back up? You're like, it is inspiring on some
As a
level,
metaphor, yes.
but don't
get hit.
I mean,
learn head movement.
Yeah,
That's
no,
like-
it's just that slowing down. It's just such a bummer. But
I
yeah,
understand what
beautiful.
he's saying though too, and like I hope he continues to train. Like I feel like that guy has so much like incredible institutional knowledge as far as like just knowing what it's like to be in the cage for as many hours. Like
Yeah.
as he has,
Yeah.
I mean, he's still in ridiculous shape. It sounds like his brain is healing itself.
I mean,
so
he's
just like,
one of the few guys who's over 20 wins in the octagon. I mean,
and he's still a relatively young guy. What is he? 36 or
37.
37? Like
That's a
he still
healthy
has
time
his
to
entire
retire.
life. Like he's
And-
probably not hurting for money.
yeah,
either.
he strikes
so
me as like he's good looking. He's
Yeah.
a huge celebrity in Canada. I think like he's like a pride of Canada. I think he'll be fine. Like that's the toughest thing is like fighters who, which is a lot of fighters, give their life to this thing, and then like the money's not great at lower levels, and you gotta like take care of that. Yeah, that's always a bummer when it's like this thing you give your life to doesn't take care of you back. But he seems to be, I think he'll be okay. And
Yeah.
he's like responsible. He seems like smart and kind. And something I like in that Joe Rogan clip too, when he's talking about he keeps saying it's silly, but he's like, I'm scared of a lot of things.
yeah, the fact that
know?
he's willing to admit that he's scared of shit,
I think
like
that
is
that's-
really, really endearing.
I always thought that about like Tyson would say that too. Tyson's like just like I was so scared. I was scared of everything. And him saying that, I don't know, it speaks to like to me there's like a lot of poetry in that and like a lot to understand. He used to say this thing that he said he was so scared in the locker room, he was so terrified of it, and then on the walk to the ring, he would like turn into this thing, and then he'd be like, I felt like a god once he got in the ring.
Yeah.
That's awesome. But
Well,
anyway,
GSP, thank you so much for so many fights,
man.
so many great memories
I
in the
hope
sport.
he
and-
keeps like commenting and shit because I don't ever want to stop hearing that voice in MMA.
yeah. By the way, I might do an impression of him on my VO demo. By the way,
You should. I feel like it's quite solid.
yeah, it's one of my better ones.
Well, so this week I did last episode's show and tell thing, and I chose to go we were saying we're going to broadly separate them into legends and history of violence. So I did kind of a history of violence one. You are going to bring a legend to the table today.
Yes, absolutely. And I want to bring a legend to your attention and to our audience's attention in the form of Man Choi.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you remember Man
yeah.
Choi?
Oh, I remember Man Choi.
Do you remember your first exposure to Man Choi?
Honestly, I don't know that I remember I don't even remember what fights I saw him fight in. I just remember his look, he just like had that like Andre the Giant, like kind of like square head. Like people talk about having a square jaw. He was like, his head was like a cube.
Yeah, him
Yeah.
and like Bigfoot Silva.
Yes.
Like they have that gigantism thing a
Yeah,
little
it's
bit.
like
So
their
it's like
jaw, like the corners of their jaw is like the same width as their cheekbones, which
Yeah.
are also very wide. They're just like, a giant. He was like a giant.
he was a literal giant. And so for those of you who are unfamiliar with him, South Korean MMA fighter, not a very impressive record, but what is impressive, 7'2". 353 pounds was his official weight. Officially classified as a super heavyweight, just because he outweighed, most unified rules of mixed martial arts cap it at 265.
Yeah, MMA, you can't be over 265.
265. Yeah, for
yeah.
heavyweight. And so there's a couple and I hesitate to use the word like freak show fighters that are well over 300 pounds. And if they have a skill set or a desire to fight, it's like, there's no way this dude's going to cut weight to 265.
Yeah.
If Brock Lesnar has trouble cutting weight to 265.
Because when you look at Man Choi too, like he's not a Bob Sapp. He's not like a jacked guy where you're like, oh, he'll slim. He's like muscular, but if you scaled him down, he, probably if you scaled him down to like 5'10", I don't think he'd be like more than 185.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
It's like
where's he going to cut that weight? Like, where's that going to come from?
Well, here's
for a
what's
guy that
interesting.
big?
Like after he stopped fighting, he naturally kind of cut down to about 310.
That's crazy.
Yeah, that's like I stopped working out and decided to not feed myself nutrients, and I cut to 310 in
that's
my
also
daily
like,
life.
You forget like
I mean, like for me, like if I stopped training right now, my body would probably rest around like 140 pounds, and like
right.
that seems okay, like I'd lose 15-ish pounds
Well, I
because
feel like-
I'm not training. But like the scale of going from 353 pounds to dropping 40-ish, 30, 40 pounds, I'm like, okay, maybe.
Yeah, but that's like exactly what that. It's kind of exponential.
Yeah.
because it's like it's spread over your whole body. Like we forget, like if you're under 200 pounds, 10 or 15 pounds is still something that's really easy to fluctuate with water and things like that. But like you scale that up and add like a foot or two, suddenly like that 10 or 15 pounds would be like your daily 5.
Yeah.
And like to drop 40 pounds just by doing nothing is like.
Like he literally did nothing once he retired. He was just like, I'm good.
Yeah, and that's just him returning to natural. Like it would be like you just losing like 10 pounds if you stopped lifting intensely.
Yeah, if I stopped training.
Yeah.
Exactly. So it's
Well,
like
he was part of that like era, right? Of like, I mean, like
okay, so
Pride would do that shit all the time,
right, and part of it too is
the quote unquote freak show thing that you're saying. Yeah,
right, and part of that was like what Pride and Glory I shouldn't say Glory, but like K1,
Yeah.
like they were not about drug testing. And like Pride was openly like, we are not going to drug test you in your contract,
right?
And that led to some of the biggest freak show fights ever. Like Bob Sapp like being being 350 pounds and having abs. Like fuck off.
Yeah,
Like,
he was. Yeah, or like that was the era of Uberim. Alistair
absolutely.
Overeem on the juice was like
on all the juice, like
unreal.
Right, and so. In this era of like, like 2008, 2005, like Japanese like fighting promotions, everybody was on everything. So anyways, Man Choi, like also this guy has some of the greatest nicknames on the face of the planet. The Techno Goliath.
Techno Goliath?
The Techno Goliath.
Is that a reference to like
that dance clip that I showed you before the podcast? Yes,
it is just a reference to like him liking techno music.
No, he loves techno music. Like this is one of his defining characteristics.
Well, because techno that sounds like he must be like a technical. He must be like when you first said Techno Goliath, I was like, that's what I thought.
Oh no, he likes EDM. Like he's only 37. Like I mean, he's a couple years he's 38 now. So he grew up in the era of like rave culture and like EDM really coming into its thing. And so when you see, hopefully we might post the clip because it's relatively short on our Instagram of him dancing awkwardly, like all 7'2", 350 pounds of this Goliath of a human being dancing with this 5-foot woman.
Yeah, like a normal sized woman. God, it's really funny too because he's like kind of like grinding on her. It's
a little bit
very weird on stage. It looks like a weigh-in or like a press conference or something.
Yeah, it's a little unclear as to what is actually happening. But also known as the Korean Colossus. Obviously, he's a South Korean fighter, and his record in MMA is nothing. It's journeyman status.
What
he's
is
like
it?
literally he's 4 wins, 5 losses. And his kickboxing career with K1 was not much better, but he at least was in the win column. He was 12-7 in there. Yeah. But more than anything, his big claim to fame was just his overall size and appearance, his amazing hair. Like he liked to dye his hair like, blonde, which was amazing in his like very full head of hair and a kind of a mullet and like a early 2000s mullet.
Nice.
Yeah. But I mean, his fight career is rather short, but also decorated. I mean, for first, to start off, he started off in K1 doing kickboxing, was like his main sort of entry point in most of his training. And he only fought in K1 for 3 years, 2005 through 2008. And in his first tournament appearance, he beat Bob Sapp, like on points.
Oh.
Like
that's kind of a funny. That's funny.
Yeah.
Because there's like definitely an air of like, not huge bummer, but moderate bummer to like the quality of those. Like 12-7 is, I mean, nice that he was, that's a winning. That's journeyman fighting. But like 4-5,
sure.
It's clear, him and Bob Sapp were like, they clearly put them in there because everyone was just like, look at these huge motherfuckers.
Well, also, I mean, that's not to discount. Bob Sapp was and is still a rock star in Japan. Like he's just like, he is so much more popular there than he ever was here.
Yeah.
And to see 2 giant dudes, get in there and kickbox, like you're just like, I wonder what could happen. So
that's what's interesting is about those making it just a fight between those 2 guys. Because Bob Sapp was never a good fighter.
Not necessarily. Yeah. But
nobody was like, oh, Bob
he
Sapp,
is
dude.
a giant dude, and you're just like, I wonder what would happen. You play this mental exercise of like, could I ever take a punch from a 350-pound jacked guy? The answer is no.
No.
But
I will say, if I had to pick between getting a punch from like Bob Sapp or like Chuck Liddell when he was like throwing punches, I'd pick that. I'd pick Bob Sapp over Chuck Liddell.
sure, because
You know what I'm saying?
well, yeah. Chuck also just has knockout power. It doesn't
that's
make
what I'm
sense.
saying,
He
that's what
knows
I'm
how to
saying.
throw a punch a lot more effectively.
Yeah, I don't know why like Chuck Liddell was the first. Maybe because but like it occurs to me as like just some people like they know how to create power. Like Nick Diaz or something like that. Diaz brothers, either the Diaz brothers. I'd rather take a punch from Bob Sapp than one of them.
Really?
Yes.
I feel like their patty cake style. Like I'd like go ahead.
No
Like it's
fucking
not
way.
going to be fun, but
No
like
way.
you're going to take
No way, because I think they have more snap. I think they have more like acceleration. I think they have more like. I mean, how many people did Bob Sapp knock out?
I couldn't tell you at this
I
point.
mean, yeah, but you know what I mean. I'm just saying, like when you think of imagining him punching, yeah, it would hurt. It would be big and heavy. But like he didn't have that. That's what's I think interesting about those like big fighters is like you learn. I don't know. I always thought like the most dangerous fight weight seems to be that like 205 weight. Because
Sure.
those are guys who
And
can still-
historically, like it was the stacked division because they were still athletic enough. They could still move, but they were still 220-pound
Yeah,
dudes
yeah.
who could throw a punch effectively.
Well, I guess that's why Brock Lesnar is so scary.
Right.
Because he's so big and he also still has like a kind of athleticism that is more associated with, smaller guys.
Right.
Yeah.
Obviously, he started in K1 and was really effective just as far as generating interest in it. Back in 2007, he was knocked out for the first time by Mighty Mo. Obviously, Mighty Mo was like, a big draw in Japan as well. He beat Gary Big Daddy Goodrich by KO.
Wow. He beat Gary Goodrich?
Yeah, baby.
Oh, wow. That's very respectable.
Yeah, in
Gary
kickboxing.
Goodrich is like fucking rad. In those early days, too, he was like a tough guy. He's the guy who's that classic clip. He's the reason they banned downward elbows in UFC.
Yeah.
Hey, we should do a thing about Gary Goodrich. But anyway,
No, he's definitely on the list.
No slouch that Gary Goodrich.
Listen, we could do one on Sapp, Mighty Mo, all these guys. And, we'll kind of jump ahead here a little bit. But, like, he eventually made his transition to K1 MMA, which is kind of like their dynamite shows and whatnot. And that's where, for a lot of people, and myself included, that's when he really sort of came on, like, to my consciousness.
Yeah.
Because the first time I remember seeing Man Choi was fighting Fedor. In that famous fight, where I think this was one of their New Year's Eve shows, and it was, back then K1 and Pride, and even to some degree these days Dream, they do these crazy New Year's Eve shows where they just stack the card, but ultimately they have like one like signature fight. And historically it's been like Fedor against someone, Mirko Cro Cop against somebody.
Yeah.
And in this one, like it was Man Choi against Fedor Emelianenko. Now this is peak Fedor.
Yeah, dude. That's when he was like the king of the world. I mean,
He was unbeatable at this
Yeah.
point. And again, he looks like an accountant. 6'2", 220,
Oh, yeah, scary accountant.
soft 220.
Yeah.
And he's so calm going into the ring, and you see a 7'2", 350-pound dude, walking in there with him, and you're just like, this is literal David versus Goliath. Not being a big guy.
Yeah.
I mean, by, arguable standards, 6'2", 220, like, that's a person.
That's a big guy. That's a big
guy.
person.
But when you watch him stand in that ring, in that Pride, like that K1 ring, and you see 7'2", 350 in front of him, he looks like a child.
Right.
It's sort of just like, oh man, this can't go well for anybody.
Yeah.
And in that fight, like you see a couple failed takedown attempts where it's like, oh God, was Fedor trying to pull guard, or was he going for a takedown and underestimated 350 pounds of active human being crushing him on landing in top position? And
it looks
watching
so
that fight,
crazy.
it's so crazy. And how technical Fedor is given his grappling background, and how untechnical Man Choi is when it comes to grappling. And you're just like, man, this is the classic jiu-jitsu struggle where it's just like, can you manipulate a untrained 350-pound person despite the fact that Fedor, who's been training for 15 to 20 years at that
Right.
point and is strong, but can you do it? And you see him once he lands the first armbar attempt that Man Choi somehow fights out of.
Yeah, that is very impressive that he does that. I mean, granted, like minutes later, he slaps it on again, and the second time he's like, all right, that's enough. But his escape from the first armbar, like, and Fedor, I mean, he's like a very high level Sambo practitioner.
Yeah,
he's like.
He's not like
Yeah.
some dickhead who's like, hey, I want to try my armbar.
Yeah,
on you.
and like if you've ever felt like people who train Sambo, like that kind of like Russian style of grappling is like they just rip your fucking arms out or your ankles. Like they just put those things on so fast and hard
and so tight. Like there's no room for error.
When you see that one, Man Choi just like arm extended, it's brutal. And somehow he gets out of it. Somehow they're standing up again, and Fedor looks scuffed up. He's got like these.
After they break, after he accidentally takes Man Choi down and lands in bottom position, Man Choi got some licks on him, and his face is marked up from even that first armbar attempt. And as he's working for the second one, he gets clipped again, and eventually he ends up winning. Fedor ends up winning by armbar again. But it's just an incredible clip. Maybe we can throw that up on the Instagram because it's not terrifically long. But he goes on to fight again, and he fought another Dynamite show where he fought Crow Cop. But again, a couple of kickboxers, man. But eventually,
did he win? Who won?
Crow Cop won
for sure.
Yeah. Just because he just chopped that poor man.
There's something about that, like there's definitely something tragic to like. Like the Andre the Giant documentaries, you watch that? There's something like tragic to the huge guy, like who's like, in a society like we continue to like grow to like just sort of try to not attach attention or things to any sort of physical aspects of any person.
Right.
Whether they're big or small or fat or thin or like whatever the color of their skin or hair or anything. Like we just do our best to like correctly like try to treat everyone normal and standard. And there are still these people who like
are outliers. Like
they're giants and people are going to be like, whoa, you're a giant. And it's got to be hard to live that way. I remember my first martial arts instructor said something because he was like kind of a big guy, not like a 7 foot something, but like, over 6 foot. And he was like something that people forget because he said there's another big guy who was, this smaller person was training with him and kept hitting him or whatever. He was like, people forget like it hurts. It still hurts when you hit. Just because I'm big, but like it still hurts when you hit me. And there's something like kind of tragic about like these beautiful giants who like just keep getting paid over and over to get in the cage with the scariest motherfuckers in the universe. People who Crow Cop like is so scary. Fedor's so scary.
And that was peak Crow Cop too. That was like 2008. Like, what was it? Right leg murder, like second leg hospital or whatever. However it goes, where it's just like he was the kickboxing guy.
Yeah.
And Man Choi, as good as he was at kickboxing, like he wasn't that good. 12-7 is a tough road to go. And like, I skipped over one of his other fights that he was supposed to fight, but he was supposed to fight Brock Lesnar at a certain point in his career. And he's had like some cancer scares that have like, he's had brain tumors, all sorts of weird things that come along more than likely from being a big guy and carrying around that extra weight.
Well, it's like Andre the Giant when they filmed Princess Bride, like Andre the Giant's own body was, and wrestling for all those years, which is like not an easy thing to do.
Sure.
But like he couldn't catch Robin Wright Penn. Like the scene when they're supposed to like he catches this, and Robin Wright Penn is like a small woman, and he's Andre the Giant. His back was so bad, and like your own body when you're that big it does some stuff that's like it's hard, just physics wise. I mean, I'm pretty sure someone's done a thing where like if giants like Jack and the Beanstalk like you couldn't exist at that. Like we couldn't be as big as like Brachiosaurus or whatever. Like like the way a human body is, like the physics, it's like exponential how much pressure is on your joints and stuff like that. The bigger you get.
Sure.
And so that's kind of what I was part of like what I think is like is tragic about these figures is like there's like a circus quality to the way they're treated. Like
100%.
Like, I don't know. It's like Andre the Giant was interesting too, like because he's the most intimate look I've seen at somebody who's like that, where like there was definitely something they enjoyed about it. Like if they or maybe they didn't, but they embraced it because like what were they going to not?
And also, what else are you going to do?
Exactly.
It's
like
not
you
like
go,
they have
this
another
is who
skill
I am.
set where it's sort of like I've been given this gift that people are calling a gift, and they're paying me well. And I'm getting a lot of positive reinforcement. People are like, "You're so good. You're so tall. You're so big. We want to see more of you." And that feels good at a certain level.
I'm sure it does feel good. I'm sure it's also confusing. Like anybody who's, I think about this a lot. Like who's valued just for something that you are that you have no control over.
Right.
Like a physicality that you have. And the strangeness of like in my life, I've thought about it. Like sometimes I value being valued for that. Like if somebody thinks I'm good looking or something like that, there's an aspect to it that I almost like felt was like more valid because it was like I didn't do anything for it. And there's a feeling that everybody should just be like loved for who they are. Mm-hmm. There's something almost like nice about it. You're like, just as you are, just for something you don't control. But on the other side of it, there's this quality of like the randomness of it. And maybe the like, I didn't pick this. And now I'm going to be this giant that everyone is going to, on some level, you kind of are like perfectly cast then to be the monster for everyone.
Right. And that's exactly what, and part of this as Japanese fight culture embraces this and really celebrates it. I mean, Bob Sapp wouldn't be Bob Sapp if he wasn't a giant black guy.
Yeah.
Like, and being black is definitely part of his experience in Japan. Like,
Which I think you're going to do an episode about that.
Absolutely. Yeah. Because like, he's like an amazing yet incredibly tragic figure within the sport, like in my opinion. And we'll do a deeper dive into that. But like, you know, part of it is like the reason I always wanted to see Man Choi is you're just like, what would happen if a 7'2" guy trained MMA and fought regular people? Yeah. And like even that thought experiment came to life. I mean, I was glued to my seat during that Fedor fight, and I know it's not. I have really conflicted feelings about it. And the same thing too, because one of his last iconic fights was in 2009 when he fought Jose Canseco. That's right. Yeah. Baseball player Jose Canseco. Yeah. In an MMA fight in his MMA debut. And
which is an oddly, it's that fight when we watched it, it's oddly reminiscent of Genki Sudo Butterbean, which is another one of those like freak show fights they've done. Genki Sudo was a 165-pound guy fighting Butterbean, who is like this large heavyweight boxer figure. And there's oddly a similar quality. The difference being Genki Sudo's like one of the best fighters in the world, and right. Jose Canseco's fucking in like jeans in this fight. He's like wearing long
kind of sweatpants. Yeah, you know.
It's awful.
Yeah. It's kind of disgraceful. Like, as much as we love fighting, it's kind of disrespectful to fighting.
It's disrespectful to fighting, and it's satisfying to see Man Choi fucking win that, because you're just like, at least, you know.
Yeah. I mean, it looks like Jose Canseco like was on a treadmill for like a little bit, but he definitely didn't train.
I mean, this whole thing gets in, and like you said with the Bob Sapp thing, it's like there's this really, this is the weirdness of fighting. There's this dark side of fighting that is like still just appealing to base instincts, and to this day, like I think Conor McGregor did it in Mayweather and stuff. Like there's this like the race baiting, or just like look at this big fucking guy's gonna fight to this little fucking guy, and this idea of like what would happen if an MMA a big 7'2" guy fought regular guys, but he doesn't fight regular guys. You're putting him against killers, and it's like here's a guy just because of his size, we're gonna put him up against the scariest people on the planet.
He's a sacrificial lamb, essentially. Yes. They're just like, hey, you're a giant. Fuck you. Go fight this guy that knows how to fight. Like,
I read a Reddit like shower thought the other day about like video games that was like, from the perspective of the boss bad guy in a video game. Yeah, you are this small character who never dies and eternally keeps respawning and coming back until you murder everybody I've ever known and you murder me. Yeah. Like, in the perspective of the quote unquote bad guy, like you are the scariest thing in the game.
Sure.
And there's something to that about these people who like are picked out because of these physical features that were like, oh my God, we love you so much. You're going to be the perfect bad guy for us. And we're just going to put you up against person after person to kick you down and like beat the fuck out of you, to be like, I mean, you know, potentially you could spin that positive and be like, to let people at home be like, even regular people like you,
can
no matter
train
how
in
big
one
your
day.
problem is.
Yeah.
You know? But
still,
man,
I mean,
for the
like,
human under that.
Absolutely, man. Like, I mean, he does look like a boss from like Contra. Like, I mean, he's
Yeah.
like my dated video game references, but like, you know, he's definitely like a level boss where you're like, oh man, how would I beat this?
Yeah.
You know, and it's just like, you know, it's very Double Dragon by sending out Fedor in there to dispatch him.
Yeah.
Anyways, we'll wrap up because we're running out of time for this episode, but we'll say this. Like, he officially retired a couple more fights after that Jose Canseco fight, and then he's since then found a new career in entertainment. After about 2009-ish, he came out of retirement to fight a couple more times, where he lost via knockout to a Brazilian fighter, Carlos Toyota. Carlos Toyota weighing in at a very muscular 310 pounds.
Jeez Louise.
But it was not... it's one of the few times that he had been knocked out with like head punches, and it was just like not pretty.
Anytime a fighter comes out of retirement, it's like not a good feeling.
It doesn't, and it wasn't a good look. And like, what I'm really glad for is that, like, you know, he's decided to have this career outside the ring where he's like now doing reality shows and like doing voiceover and doing all these different things. And we'll try to link them in the show notes about some of his interesting stuff. But, you know, he's definitely trying to diversify. But I mean, again, we haven't really touched upon some of like,
I'm sorry, I'm reading your notes.
Yeah.
He began a singing career.
Yeah.
With supermodel Kang Soo-hee in Korea under the name of Beauty and the Beast.
Yeah, you didn't know about that? You've never heard his rap single? Yeah, I mean, he's such a fascinating guy. He also served in the army for like 21 months and was forced to leave because he's like, oh, I'm having a problem with my left eye. Oh yeah, what is it? It's a brain tumor. Like,
damn.
I mean, he ended up being fine.
Oh, well, yeah, they got out the surgery. Yeah.
Yeah,
wow.
but it's just like, you know, I feel like there's even greater depth we could have gone into on this, but like, I just want to, you know, sort of share with you guys like the magic that is Man Choi, and like, no, he's a little bit like, he's much more than this tragic figure or the sacrificial lamb that fighting has sort of put out into the world, where it's sort of just like, he's more than 7'2", 350 pounds of dude who kind of knows how to fight. And we're going to throw the best fighters in the world, a murderer's row of fighters with the exception of Jose Canseco, at him to see what would happen.
Yeah, that is like kind of an amazing, I mean, you're sort of a gatekeeper, I guess, but like, they're like, hey, you got to fight Man Choi at some point. And damn, like how many, like the gumption, I don't know, the toughness required to be that guy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Anyways.
Amazing.
So that is the first segment of Legends.
Yeah.
And,
that's a good
you know,
start.
I feel like there's such an endless list. And I mean, we can talk about legendary fights specifically or fighters. I mean, I feel like there's just such a deep well to go to.
Yeah, for sure.
And, you know, for me, I definitely came online as far as like fighting goes, like around 2007. So like there's some really great golden era stuff of fighting to definitely go into. But anyways, that's Legends.
Yeah, dope. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you for bringing Man Choi back into my life.
Yeah. Hopefully brings it back to everybody's life.
If you guys also enjoyed having Man Choi back in your life, subscribe to us and leave reviews if you like it. Find us on FightStuff Podcast on Instagram.
Yep.
Email us at fightstuffpodcast@gmail.com if you'd like to suggest a viral clip of the week or a topic you want to explore.
Sure, absolutely. If there's a new segment you think we should do, or if there's a legend you think we should cover,
anything related to fighting, fight stuff, violence in history, like whatever, we'll that's on the table.
We'll definitely entertain it. Where can we find you on the internet, Jarrett Sleeper?
At Jarrett Sleeper, JARRETT _SLEEPER on Instagram, but I think you'll just find it if you look for me.
Cool, yeah, and you can find me, Zeke Thomas is rad, on Instagram, and of course, ZekeThomas.com for all your Zeke Thomas needs. This has been another episode of Fight Stuff.
Fight Stuff is a production of Mind Jam Media. Special thank you to Jason Scardamalia for making this delightful theme song. See you next time, fight fans.